Existential philosopher Albert Camus is the most well-known absurdist philosopher. His philosophy is best explained in Camus' essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, as well as two of his most popular novels, The Stranger and The Plague. The Stranger is probably the best novel introduction that I have ever read. Mama died today, or yesterday maybe, I don't know. This hints at the reader that the protagonist, Marceau, captures the essence of what Camus called the absurd man. Now Marceau is a character who has an astonishing indifference to all the events in his life, as well as an indifference to the world around him. Here is an excellent definition in Albert Camus' own words of what the absurd means and what it implies. I quote, "It's absurd means it's impossible, but also it's contradictory. If I see a man armed with only a sword attack a group of machine guns, I shall consider his act to be absurd. But it is solely by virtue of the disproportion between his intention and the reality he will encounter, of the contradiction I notice between his true strength and the aim he has in view. Likewise, we shall deem a verdict to be absurd when we contrast it with the verdict the facts apparently dictated. And similarly, a demonstration by the absurd is achieved by comparing the consequences of such a reasoning with the logical reality one has to set up. This definition in The Myth of Sisyphus explains what the absurd means in the context of Camus' philosophy. Comprehending the absurd world usually has a ridiculous beginning. Albert Camus noticed that the first sign of absurdity is when our minds are completely devoid of any thoughts, hopes, or certainties. If somebody were to ask you about what you were thinking during this time, and you reply with nothing, you are actually being sincere. This nothingness gives us a glimpse into the absurdity of the human condition. Unlike the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, Albert Camus did not believe in blind faith. In other words, Camus was an atheist. As a result, he did not believe that there was a divine plan, or an inherent meaning to life. Camus believed that we are rational beings in an irrational universe that does not care about our hopes, dreams, and desires. The disproportionate relationship between the unforgiving and silent universe in relation to the sensitivity of us as human beings is what Camus found to be absurd and irrational. To Chestov, reason is useless, but there is something beyond reason. To an absurd mind, reason is useless and there is nothing beyond reason, wrote Camus in The Myth of Sisyphus. The absurd mind understands the futility of constructing a reasonable and logical explanation to our life, as there is always an element of randomness in everything that takes place. Albert Camus stated that he who despises the human condition is a coward, but he who has hope for it is a fool. In the end, Albert Camus believed that it is not worth succumbing to the absurd, either through despair or suicide. He also found that it was not worth escaping the absurd either. People usually escape the absurdity through hope, organized religion, as well as ideological ways of living. For Camus, this is philosophical suicide because it provides stable answers and does not promote critical and philosophical thinking. So it seemed to Camus that the best way to live was not through succumbing or escaping the absurd. Rather, it is by rebelling against the absurd, and maybe even transcending the despair or the hope that is caused by the human condition. This can be done by living such a fulfilling life that your freedom itself is a rebellion against the absurd. Thank you for clicking on my video. Please consider subscribing as it does help.